Hello and welcome to Guidance Review. I'm your host, David Pudwill, and today we're going to be talking about FDA's guidance document on unique device identification and the policy regarding compliance dates. This guidance document was published in July 2020. So here, if we move forward, we can see that we've got the guidance document pulled up here. And again, as I said, it's the unique device identification policy regarding compliance dates for Class 1 and unclassified devices and certain devices requiring direct marking. We can pull up the, as we typically do, we can go ahead and there are links here to the regulations.gov, and you can see some of the comments that were posted at this location. And here we have a comment from Matrix IT and a comment from NACDS. And if we get into the actual content of the guidance here, as we move down, we can see the document was issued on July 1st, 2020, and it supersedes guidance that was published in November of 2018. And again, for questions, you can direct any inquiries to the GUDID support at fda.hhs.gov. So if we move forward, there is an opportunity to provide public comment since this guidance is being implemented without prior public comment. And as usual, you can go ahead and comment regulations.gov. And here's some information about where you can submit your comments. And you can also request additional copies. If we move down here, this is a relatively short guidance document as we move into the table of contents here. And a couple questions that I want you to be able to answer from today's video is, one, what is a unique device identification, UDI? What is FDA's policy on GUDID submission? And what are the compliance dates for UDI? So if we continue here, we'll move in and see the details here on some of the background. So there are requirements starting September 24th, 2018, for standard date formatting, labeling, and global unique device identification database, or GUDID data submission. And as of September 24th, 2020, coming up later this year, there are going to be direct mark requirements. And you can see the relevant 21 CFR references here. So this particular guidance describes FDA's intention with regard to enforcement of these requirements for Class 1 and unclassified devices. The guidance also describes FDA's direct mark compliance policy for Class 3, LS, and Class 2 devices that are non-sterile, that are manufactured and labeled prior to their applicable direct mark compliance date, and that remain in inventory, as well as for Class 1 and unclassified devices that are not LS devices, that are non-sterile, that are manufactured and labeled prior to September 24th, 2022. Throughout this guidance document, the terms we, us, and our, as usual, refer to FDA staff from CDRH and from CBER, and you, that would be us. The guidance is being implemented without prior public comment, as we noted before. And if we jump into background here, FDA details the history going back to September 24th, 2013, when FDA published a final rule establishing a unique device identification system designed to adequately identify devices through distribution and use. And this is termed the UDI rule. And phased implementation was set forth in that rule, and it established compliance dates from September 24th, 2014 to September 24th, 2020. And this UDI rule requires a device to bear a UDI on its label and packages unless an exception or alternative applies. And also requires that data pertaining to the key characteristics of each device are uploaded to the GUDID database. So there's some more detail here that might apply to your specific case. And FDA goes into a little bit more flowery language here about fully realizing the benefits of UDI system, et cetera. They want high quality data, they want everybody engaged. And in January of 2018, FDA issued the previous iteration of this guidance document, which stated that for Class 1 and unclassified devices, the agency did not intend to enforce standard date formatting, UDI labeling, and GUDID data submission requirements prior to September 24th, 2020, and direct mark requirements prior to September 24th, 2022. So that guidance explained some of the history and some of the technical issues. So furthermore, FDA had received a large number of inquiries related to the policy and technical issues and anticipated receiving a similar high volume of these questions from labelers of Class 1 and unclassified devices. Therefore, the guidance stated that the agency intended to focus its resources on addressing implementation challenges and optimizing the quality and utility of UDI data for higher risk devices before implementing for lower risk devices. And this January 2018 guidance was superseded by a previous version issued in November 2018. And since January of 2018, FDA has continued to work on this issue, and they also continue to receive a number of inquiries. So if you're like most other folks in the industry, just because of the practicalities, you've probably already implemented a UDI. If you haven't, you should really get on the bandwagon, get things moving, and start thinking about getting information uploaded to GUDID because time is beginning to run short. So here, FDA also notes that there may be COVID-19 implications and that they're currently focused on COVID-19 response efforts, as are potentially some of the folks impacted by this guidance. So FDA recognizes that the cost of remediating existing devices in inventory could be substantial, and the compliance policy described in this guidance for certain devices in inventory that do not comply with the direct mark requirements is intended to facilitate the use of those devices while still realizing some UDI-related benefits to patient safety. So here, as we move forward, we can see the policy on standard date formatting, UDI labeling, and GUDID data submission requirements for Class 1 and unclassified devices. And at this time, in light of the considerations enumerated above, FDA does not intend to enforce standard date formatting, UDI labeling, and GUDID submission requirements under 21 CFR 801.18, 21 CFR 801.20, 21 CFR 801.50, and 21 CFR 830.300 for Class 1 and unclassified devices, other than one LS devices before September 24th, 2022. And again, they note that a finished device manufacturer and labeled prior to the compliance date established by FDA is accepted from the requirement to bear a UDI for a period of 3 years after that compliance date. Now, keep in mind that because the shelf life on some of these products might be longer than that, there could be some implications even prior to that implementation date. And here, the compliance dates established in the preamble have not changed. And again, devices manufactured and labeled prior to September 24th, 2018 are accepted from UDI labeling and GUDID data submission requirements for a period of 3 years after the established compliance date or until September 24th, 2021. However, FDA does not intend to enforce the requirements for Class 1 and unclassified devices prior to September 24th, 2022. So that gives you effectively 4 years instead of 3, regardless of the date they're manufactured and labeled. So again, there's a little bit of a respite, even in addition for those products that are manufactured even, let's say, between now and September 24th, 2022. And in terms of the FDA policy for direct mark of certain devices, for devices that are manufactured and labeled prior to the established direct mark compliance date that remain in inventory, so this will be your existing inventory that precedes that direct mark date. The policy applies only to finished Class 3 and Class 2 devices that are non-sterile, that were manufactured and labeled prior to their established direct mark compliance date and that remain in inventory. In general, the direct mark compliance date for Class 3 devices is September 24th, 2016. You're probably coming near to the end of the shelf life on those products, depending on that product. And for LS devices, September 24th, 2015. Again, probably coming near to the end of the shelf life if you've got anything like a 5-year shelf life or less. And for Class 2 devices, September 24th, 2018. However, pursuant to this CFR, finished devices manufactured and labeled prior to the applicable compliance date established by FDA are not required to comply with UDI requirements until 3 years after the labeling compliance date. So this provision was intended to reduce the burden associated with the UDI rule for inventories of finished devices. And as noted, a lot of that stock, depending on how long the shelf life is, that 3-year compliance reprieve, let's say, probably covers a large amount of inventory, at least in terms of what's typically depleted in that time frame, even if you do have a longer shelf life. And for Class 3 and Class 2 devices described above, for a co-packaged combination product or kits, FDA does not intend to enforce a UDI direct mark requirement when the device's UDI can be derived from other information directly marked on the device. And in determining whether that UDI information can be derived from other information, FDA intends to consider whether the labeler has developed and made available a method for constructing the UDI from other information. Now, this could be a catalog number, a lot number, serial number, such that the UDI is readily available at the point of use and has documented or referenced that method in the device master record. FDA also intends to develop a new field in GUDID to capture that a device is subject to such a method for constructing the UDI, and they recommend that labelers use the new field to document, when applicable, that their devices are subject to such a method. And for Class 1 and unclassified devices, the direct mark compliance date is September 24th, 2020. And at this time, in light of everything that FDA has talked about above, they do not intend to enforce UDI direct mark requirements under 21 CFR 801-45 for those devices before September 24th, 2022. And this policy applies to sterile and non-sterile devices and includes device constituents of a co-packaged combination product or kit. In addition, here FDA says they do not intend to enforce UDI direct mark requirements under 21 CFR 801-45 for finished Class 1 and unclassified devices that are non-sterile, that were manufactured and labeled prior to September 24th, 2022, and that remain in inventory, again, when the device's UDI can be derived from other information directly marked on the device. In determining whether, again, a device's UDI can be derived from other information, FDA intends to consider all the information they considered above, and again, they intend to develop a new field, and FDA recommends that labelers use the new field to document, where applicable, that their devices are subject to such a method. And that's the end of the guidance document. You know, there's really not a whole lot of information here, but hopefully you found it useful. And just want to say thank you for joining me in this guidance review. And I also hope that you're able to take away a couple key messages from today's video. One, what is unique device identification, or UDI? Hopefully we've answered that question for you. Also, second, what is FDA's policy on GUDID submission and compliance? And three, what are the compliance dates for UDI? So again, thank you for joining us. Please check out the other links available here, and subscribe and comment on the videos. I really look forward to you engaging with us on this particular guidance document, as well as other future videos. So hope to catch you in the next one. Thank you again for joining us, and have yourself a wonderful day.